Oh, the mic was off. Good morning, everyone. Right, so last week we were discussing marriage and the relationships that we have with other people. And for those who were there in the afternoon, we had an enjoyable afternoon and we started a little bit about some tools that families can use to communicate with each other to enhance their relationships. And there were practical lessons. I think if I can recall, the very first one we did, um, those who were there, they will remember. They got an orange and they were told to do whatever they want with the orange. They didn't know what was coming. After that, they were given some string and some tape, and they were then asked to put that orange back together again. And I was laughing as I was watching some people when they were peeling the orange, they were destroying it, and then some were cutting with the scissors. You know, it's very interesting. And the lesson in that was that we need to be careful about the words we use in our relationships. You know, sometimes we use words that we don't mean to use, and when we try to repair those relationships, we repair them, but they never go back to the original. So those are some of the lessons that we learned. So today we are continuing with the same theme again of families, and our theme is families for heaven. Um, Basically, our families are where our children learn about God first. And as families, we need to be empowered, we need to be geared towards getting our children ready for heaven as well. And so today we are going to focus on parenting particularly. Um, and so our scripture reading comes from, sorry, let me just get, okay. So our scripture reading comes from Psalm 103, verse 17. And it says, "But from everlasting to everlasting, the Lord's love is with those who fear him, and his righteousness with their children's children." So, as you can see, once we impart the knowledge and the love of God that we have to our children, then they will pass that on to their children, and so forth and so forth and so forth, until Jesus comes. And if we read Proverbs 22, verse 6, as parents, and when I'm saying parents, I'm not talking about people who have children only. A parent is an adult who is able to impart something to someone who is younger. All of us are parents, whether I'm a parent to my own child, or I'm a parent to my sister's child, my brother's child, to a friend's child. We all have an obligation to teach children the right things. Proverbs 22, verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So we have an obligation to prepare our children for the future. If we read a quotation from the manuscripts, it says, "Parents, you are under a solemn obligation to train your children for God. They are his heritage, and to you is given the work of preparing them for acceptance as members of the royal family in the heavenly courts." So we need to prepare our children for heaven. We need to be ready as families for heaven. And the only way we can do that is if we understand what those roles entail. So for today, it's not going to be a sermon. I'm sure most of
or they are able to share their experiences, practical experiences. Because the world I grew up in, for example, is not the same world Emma is growing up in. The way I was taught and brought up is different. And as parents, I'm sure as you've been raising your children, you are seeing that the generational gap seems to be getting bigger and bigger to some extent. And we're saying, as Christians, God's principles do not change. They have not changed. And we want to be able to navigate how to raise our children in this complicated world. So this is what we are doing today. Oh. Sorry, I'm the one who's moving the slides today. So, train up. The verse that we just read from Proverbs 26, verse 6. Train up a child. So this acronym, so to speak, this is something I came up on my own because I thought these are things that I think are important as Shepherd and I raise Emma. Right? And we want to encourage parents. Have your own acronym, your own slogan, or whatever it is that you are defining in terms of raising your child. So we used the first two words in that verse, train up. T, teach. We have an obligation to teach our children the right things. R, rebuke. It's very difficult these days to be able to tell people to stop doing the wrong thing, but we have that obligation to tell our children the wrong things that they are doing and to advise them to do the right things. We need to take time to invest in our children. And investing in our children is not only about a college fund, right? It's about time with them, teaching them the right principles, spending time talking about God, spending time with God, investing in their spiritual future. Navigate. We have a role to play in ensuring our children are guided in the right direction, that they are equipped to navigate life themselves. Uphold. We have certain principles that we adhere to. As Adventists, we have certain principles that are our own. And we need to teach our children to uphold these. And to teach them to uphold them, we need to uphold these principles ourselves. And finally, pray. We can do absolutely nothing if we're not prayerful. And we need to pray for our children. And children, or young people, you need to pray for us too. Because we don't always know the right way to deal with you or to raise you. And so it needs to be a concerted effort to actually get the family up and running and ready for heaven together. We are going to move to our first panel discussion. So we have 4 discussions that are going to come up. And the first one is on parenting. When we look at the Bible, the advice that is provided is usually parents, do this for your children. Parents, guide your children in this way or that. And we want to find out, is parenting a parent's job, or it is something that the entire family can actually coordinate on? Do children play any role in their parents' parenting efforts, so to speak? So, I am going to hand this. Okay, so the panel obviously is here dedicated to talking about some of these issues, but we are going to have some mentees that are going to come up in the course of the discussions. So we encourage you please to send answers on the mentees. And besides that, if you do have any burning comment or anything that you'd want to say or anything you want to ask the panel, please, as far as possible, we'll try and accommodate that. So I'm going to hand over to our panel. Parenting, is it merely a parent's job?
I'll talk from experience. Yeah, that's what we agreed on, to say we use mostly our experience. And okay, thank you. Parenting is the parent's job as well as the family effort. You realize that when I'm talking on this parenting issue, it will sound a bit odd, because if I look at most of you in church today, you could be my children, some of you, most of you. So what I went through with my parents could be different, will be different from what some of you went through, and it will even be worse. It will be different from what maybe Emma and some of the girls in the church are experiencing. I realized that as I grew up, it wasn't only my parents who did the parenting job. It was the family around. Yes, my parents had a responsibility, but the family as a whole, especially with the church family. I grew up in a situation where I was at a church school. I mean, we lived in church schools most of our lives because my father was a teacher, an SDA teacher. So we went from school to school, and that gave us an opportunity to learn a lot of things from other people around. And so, as my parents helped me in life, I realized that they would even quote some examples of what was happening around. They would quote some examples of what was happening in some people's, asked me to look at how the other families were managing. With the children going to church, with the children going to school, and with children being some good examples in the community. And that made us realize that this effort, the way of bringing up children wasn't just the parents on their own, but the family around. And my parents expected me to follow what they wanted me to do. I had little choice in most cases. It was either I take it or not. And if I didn't take it, then I would reap the consequences. There was no two ways about it. So as a result, we can't run away from the fact that we as parents have a job to do. We don't want to leave this work for some people to do it for us. I've noticed that there are times when when children are in school, people will start saying, oh, the school is no good. The school is not helping our children. And we forget that it's us who need to start helping the children. The school will do help at times, but the most important parent's duty is to make sure that the child is obedient, the child listens to instructions, the child is respectful. You don't expect somebody to teach your child to be respectful. You don't expect somebody to teach your child to follow instructions. And so, just in general, I'm going to say parenting is the parent's job to do, and at the same time, you will expect the family members will do it without sitting down to help the children, but through their interaction, through their relationship with the other family members, they will have a part in the parenting of a child.
Thank you. Brother Nee?
In the country where I come from, Nigeria, everybody participated in the training of a child. So far, you are within the vicinity where that child is growing up. So that if I, as a child, I misbehave somewhere, the people who know me, they will spank me. They will now bring me home to my parents. They will narrate what I did to my parents and let them know that they have done the spanking. But if they want to continue, they can continue, but they had already done the spanking. And so it was a collective effort. I cannot misbehave in the face of those who know me, even though they are not my parents, simply because I know that they have the authority, unwritten authority, to deal with me if I misbehave. But in a society like this, like the UK, where we have this mind your business kind of affair with everyone, it is primarily a parent's job. You're failing at you're not doing your job. Nobody else will do it for you in the UK or in developed world. It is primarily your parent's job. Whatever the outcome of a child is down to the parents. And that is why when the social system see that there is a problem with the child, they deal with the parents directly. So I think whether it's a parent's job or a family effort, it boils down to the society and the circumstances surrounding the parents. But at the end of the day, it is still the parent's job. Wherever you may go, primarily it's the parent's job. But sometimes in societies like this, it can just be the parent alone. And I think in our case here, unlike my own contest, for my daughter, it is myself and Shade's job.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to there's a Menti that is up there for you to be sharing your opinions on this particular question. So this is the open-ended one that has long answers that you can input. So please be putting your answers up there so that they can also be discussed by the panel. Okay, who's going next? Pastor.
When we lived in South Africa, my daughter was young. We stayed there until she was about 6 years old. And something interesting happened. My father adopted a young baby boy almost at the same time that my daughter was born. It's a complicated story. My mum passed away and my dad got remarried. And they thought, oh, it would be wonderful if we could have a child together. But they were already in their 50s or so. And so they adopted this child at the same time. And it was interesting. We lived close to each other. And so instead of us having grandparents where we could take our child to look after, they regularly needed a bit of a break, so they would come and deliver the child for us to look after the child. But it was actually a wonderful experience. But then we moved to the United Kingdom, or in fact, I moved to a different part of the country. My parents moved to Thailand, and I came to Thailand. And suddenly, you felt that effect of the family just becoming a lot smaller. And there's a lot more pressure on you as a parent when it's just you and the two of you, because you have to, you basically in this country, you almost have to give up your job to bring up a child because you have to go and pick them up at school, etc. But so I understand the pressure that there is. One thing that I discovered in South Africa was that it was very easy for a parent to hand responsibility over to somebody else. Because it's just so much, it's easy because you've got a grandparent or a grandchild or a cousin or an aunt or somebody that can just look after the children. I think we should maybe go back to the first principles, and that is what is our task as a parent? And our task, I think, is we want to bring a young person into the world who can, first of all, choose to follow Jesus and live their life according to the values of the Bible and of the gospel. And then secondly, make a contribution to the society. And that is our first task as a parent. We want our children to do that. And we have a God-given responsibility to invest in that. And we can't easily outsource that. And the way that we need to do it is we need to create an environment in which our child can grow and can develop. And that is what we've got the responsibility for. And then we can call in help from outside for that.
Thank you, Pastor. Sister Fioma?
Parenting for me was a little different. Okay, I grew up like my brother here, so it's similar. But raising our own children was a little different, and more similar to what they did, because my children were born back home. So the initial training was from back home. So everything was practically typical as an African home. We're from Nigeria. And we'll find that in the course of, from the day you gave birth, you are not alone. You're supported. You have family support. The child is taken from you from birth, then is nursed, and my mother-in-law practically left everything, and she was with us all through for a very long time. After my mother came to do the initial Omogwo thing for about 3 months, my mother-in-law owned up the responsibility of taking care of her twins, and she was excited. So it was very collective for everybody to take, and it was a family thing, both families. But the one child that would have a more isolated training of all my children would be the last one, Unique. So she was born, and she was just about 3 months thereabout after her dedication in July. So we left Port Harcourt from the big family, and I had to stay alone with her. And Victor left the Nigeria for UK. So I was with her alone, and my sister-in-law's baby that also came with me. So it was more like to a foreign place where you only know one person, or you know people that are your neighbors. So it was more of parenting. Typically myself, she. So she's very attached to me. It's a unique case. Well, then coming back to what if it is a job, because if it's a job, you want to look at what are the professional ethics that are around it. It is typically a job, it is. And this is a job that you owe the responsibility to heaven, God, because these children are God's children. We all are. So we have been called to train them up. So it is a job. And this is intentional. Training is not something you do at the whim. You are intentional. You are investing in the child. You are in the child or the children. You are spending a lot of time with them. And the Deuteronomy 6 even highlighted how you have to do them. As you walk on the street, you take them to school. As you go to the park, you play with them. You have to truly teach them, train them, and be intentional on the things that you have to do. So it is a job, first for you parents, and then for the community as the child grows and associates and socialize with the community.
Hey, thank you to our panel. I have been seeing some of the responses. I would also like the young people to say what they feel, because here we've been talking about family as in your aunts, your uncles raising you, right? As young people, how does it feel when I am not your parent, all right? For example, Chloe, I see you doing something and I'm like, Chloe, no, all right? How do you deal with that? Do you feel anyone else should be talking to you besides your parents? Okay. Now I'm just going to look at some of the responses that we have here. So we have some responses where people are saying, no, this is something that should be done exclusively by parents. But we also have quite a lot of responses that are saying, parents, yes, you have that obligation. That's the first port of call, right? You need to be the one who is primarily responsible for the children. But we have then the secondary family that also has a responsibility. So apparently taking on the burden by yourself can take a toll on a person. It's more effective as family effort, but it can be difficult in the environment that we're living in, especially as parents may not have all the power that they would want to have. Sometimes you need your extended family or friends. The whole community raises a child. Which one? Oh, yes, please, Martin, I saw that. There is a note here about firstborns. I don't know, how many of you are firstborns here? Okay, have you experienced this feeling of raising your siblings? It teaches you to be very responsible, and at times it feels like you're having to be responsible at too young an age, right? So, parents, do not place too much burden on your firstborn. Okay, is this a comment?
No, I was just wanting to highlight the issue of being a first child and feeling you should be responsible and help your siblings. One of my siblings calls me deputy parent.
Okay, so we have children who are deputy parents. That is, I mean, my older sister is like my mother, honestly. She's always taking care of all of us. Please, can we scroll to the bottom to see if there is anything else we need to take a look at? Okay, and then there's someone there who noted that the parents' own beliefs, all right, have an impact. Because at times, if you don't instill your values, someone else will parent your child and parent them the wrong way. So you need to also be very careful, all right? I suppose it becomes a conundrum, right? Yes. How do we protect our children, but also ensure that they understand that the older people around them also have a role to play in their upbringing? Do we have any answer we can have to that one before we move on to the next thing?
Maybe we'll say it's not that they have a role to play, but they have an interest in helping the children around. Like, for instance, I'm in church here, and I noticed that one of the children is not doing the right thing. As a responsible parent, I can talk to the mother. I'm just giving a suggestion. I can talk to the mother and point out some of those things. I know it might sound very interfering, but in a society where we claim to be brothers and sisters, it should be helping us to realize that we are there for one another. And you find that some child, one of the children is doing something extremely wrong. I don't think, if you are really genuine, if we are really loving, it shouldn't be a problem to indicate it to the parents, just in case it will help the child and not get into serious problems. With love, you do it with love and prayerfully.
Thank you. So we all have a responsibility to these young people. If we see someone not doing the right thing, it's not enough for us to just ignore it and think it's just the parents' problem, because we are also part of each other's families. And there's another comment in church. One of the problems we have is that everyone wants to hand responsibility for Sabbath school and religious education over to someone else. It would be far better if we all did it collectively. Hey, very important point. The church is here to augment what has already been started in the home. And as parents, we need to take responsibility, but children, it's also your responsibility. Your parents buy you those Sabbath school books, read them, please. Okay? Your parents encourage you to pray, do all those things. The eagerness we have for doing things at school should be the same eagerness we can show here in church. So I'm just going to move on. So Deuteronomy 6, I think this is what Sister Fioma was talking about. 6 verse 5 to 9 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your heart, on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." Back to the manuscripts. Parents are to give their children such a training that as they grow older, they will take part in the work of the Lord. From their earliest years, children are to be trained to habits of order and helpfulness. They are to be taught to be burden bearers according to their several ability. As they grow older, they will become more and more useful and more fitted to bear their share of the burdens of life. Children are to be taught to be respectful to their parents and to one another. Thus, they learn to be respectful to God. They are to be taught to appreciate the abilities that God has given them, to remember that Christ's love for them calls for the surrender of all to Him. They are to be taught to do right because it is right, to control self, to be kind, loving, gentle, to forget self in the effort to help one another. So parents, these are the things that we need to be highlighting to our young people and teaching them. And as a church family, we also need to be encouraging the young people around us to live up to these principles.
Okay. Right. Now we're going to discuss a very important issue of discipline. I know it's a very uncomfortable topic, but discipline comes on various levels. You can discipline someone who has done something wrong, or you can instill discipline in your child as they grow up. How you do that is something else. So the question is to our panel, anything to say about discipline in today's world? How do you handle discipline? Is it still appropriate to use the word discipline? We know that in some circles it has negative connotations, but it also has positive. Just give us your experience about discipline.
Thank you. From my growing up days, based on how I was raised by my father and my elder brothers. And you saw one of them when he came 2 years ago, when he visited. All my elder brothers could have me as their son. They are far advanced in age than myself. So when I saw the way they all raised me, the way I thought I was going to raise my children was that if my children hear my feet from the door, they should be in awe of my presence and fear me and see me as an authority. But I have outgrown that thought. I have learned better. Especially in a society like this, your children could be taken from you if they see that you are abusing your children. What we do in Africa, to them here is an abuse. But even at that, I still believe I was a child before. And I know that Niyi, as a child, telling me something is not good is not enough. It's not enough for you to tell a child that something is right or wrong. As children who are yet to know the difference between right and wrong, there must be compelling measures to make a child to do the right things. I know that the culture is really different. In this part of the world, you want to have conversations with children. You want to say, "Oh, baby, this is not good." Yeah. But you must understand that the ability to choose what is good and what is not has not been well developed for that child. So therefore, you must have compelling instruments. You must have compelling instruments. For many parents, telling their child that the child is grounded for a week might be very strong. And when that parent says you are grounded, it's like, go to your room, you will be in your room for for the entire week, you must not come out. You will only come out when it's time for food. If you tell that to my Anioluwa, it's fun. Telling my daughter she should stay in her room is fun. Because she has her computer, she has her books, and she can spend the entire day in her room. So that for me is not an instrument. Telling Anioluwa to go to her room to go and sit down is not an instrument. God has given us our instrument in our home on dealing with her without actually inflicting physical harm on her. I think parents, you must find what is compelling. I have to emphasize that. You must have what compels your child to do what you want them to do. When the time comes for them to start making up their mind on what to do, you won't have to force them. And even when you've done all of this, and the child chooses to be different, parents you must be what you preach. At the end of the day, discipline is coding. I'm a programmer by profession. If you don't design your software before you start building it, you are going to have problem very soon. If myself and my wife do not agree on the design of our discipline, if I am saying Tata and my wife is doing Nana, there is going to be a problem with what we are coding, which is the child. Both of us must have a design. Discipline comes by design. Both of us, if the child sees that the father is cold and the mother is hot, you have a problem. Both of us must stand in the same place. When the child understands that both of us are speaking the same language, as far as what is right is, and we are not arguing ourselves, it's terrifying. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this topic. It's very terrifying when a father says, go and sit down. Sit down, I said, and the mother is saying, no, now be gentle with her. Don't talk to her like that. You have a problem already. You are already creating a problem for that child on what to choose as far as moral code is concerned. So the design of discipline must start with the parent. And then when you must discipline a child, there must be compelling reason. They don't know what is right or wrong. You are the one who is saying it is wrong. They don't know. You are the one who knows that what they are choosing is wrong. And so you must give them the compelling reason to not do it. With time, they know that it's part of their life. It is never comfortable. My son has a phobia for the hospital. And anytime I take him to the hospital or they need to do something for him, if I grab him, there is a way he will lift up his face and look at me. Like, are you my father at all? He doesn't talk, but the look in his face is asking me a question of, are you my father at all? How can you grab me like this and let people do this thing to me? That is the look that comes on his face. And that is it when we are dealing with our children, when we give them things that are not comfortable, when we give them compelling reasons for them not to do what they are doing. It may not be comfortable, but we know it's for their benefit. They are ordering you, they are giving you injection. It's not to harm you, but it's for your own benefit. At the end of the day, those measures that we take, it is not to harm them if we are sure that we are doing it in love. Proverb 23 says that that is where we get spare the rod and spoil the child. The Bible says if you spare the rod, that is, if you spare your measures of measurement, whatever you are using for discipline, if you spare it, you hate that child. But the child that loves the child will make sure that there is some level of discipline. Just make sure you are not abusing the child. By abusing the child, you don't love the child. But if you do love the child, there should be some measures that you must make sure to tell the child that this is wrong, and it is wrong, by our standard in this house. Thank you.
Just before we get the next panelist, can we just go on to the mentee? Please be answering this as they give us the next, their thoughts on discipline. What type of discipline works best? This is especially for the younger people. What do you think will be the discipline that works for you? Okay.
When I was about 5 years old, I was much more frightened of my mother than of my father for some reason. My mother had a clothes brush that had a hard back that would often be used as the weapon of punishment against me. And so one day I was meant to get that beating from my mom because I didn't clean the room or something. But I learned that I can run more quickly than my mom can. So I ran out of the house and I went and hid away behind the bush. And I stayed out for the whole morning. But when lunchtime came and I needed to come back in, the funny thing is that my mom was still there. And then she said, okay, before we have lunch, come to the room. And now we're going to have a conversation because you ran away from me. And because you ran away from me, I'm going to give you a beating twice. First, because you didn't clean your room, and secondly, because you were just running away from me. You didn't. But she explained what she was doing to me and why she was doing it. And after she explained it, I did get that beating, and I was in tears. But I'd learned my lesson that I must never run away from my mom again. But my mom was quite clever because she had the choice of running after me. And so there's a way in which, and then her dignity would go down and the whole situation would get out of control. And so there is a skill in disciplining. First of all, in this country, we don't do beatings, okay? So I want to say this quite clearly. We mustn't even consider that. It causes so much more problems than what a person can do. And I can reassure you that there's a way to discipline children that we don't have to beat. In fact, I think it's probably a better way of being able to do it. So let me say, but what I would like to strongly urge you as a parent is let's take time to learn the skills of discipline. It doesn't just come with one conversation like this. And there's a lot that's written about it, and Ellen White and our church says a lot about it. And we should probably put together a seminar just on discipline. One thing I would say about discipline is that people go through different stages. There's a study, lots of studies that talk about moral development for young people and children. Now, the lowest level of moral development is that I don't do something because I'm afraid of the punishment that I'm going to get, okay? Now, we all do that. I don't go more than 30 miles an hour because I'm afraid of the punishment. But that's not a good reason not to go more than 30 miles an hour. There's better reasons than that, because I want to stay safe. I want to keep other people safe. Another reason why I can be disciplined is because I don't want to disappoint somebody in authority. So I will not do something because my parents will be really upset with me and I'll be embarrassed and they'll be embarrassed. But again, that's not the best reason to do something. So the reasons why the best level of moral development is where the third reason for moral development is the rules. Okay, so the Bible says you are not allowed to have relationships out of marriage. There's a rule, and that's a good reason to keep it. But most people actually get stuck on the rules and they don't go to the higher level, which is where you begin to realize what is the purpose of the rule, what is behind it. And so for us as parents, when we want to discipline, what we're trying to do is we want to bring our children to the point where they're not just doing something because they're afraid, but they're doing something because they because they know what the outcome of their behavior will be in the long run. Last story, one day my wife and and I were upset with my daughter, and she came to us and she knew that we were upset. And, we didn't even have to punish her. She just started crying. She says, I'm going to go to my room because I need to punish myself because I did something that was wrong. And we actually felt so good about it. We've never forgotten that because we feel that if you communicate well with your children and you're consistent, they begin to regulate themselves, and that is what you really want them to do.
Okay. The other panelists, you can go ahead if you have anything to say. If you don't, it's fine.
I always feel when it comes to discipline, I think it's the way our programs are like in the home. We have to come up with a schedule where we know that there's time for us to pray. There's time for us to discuss certain things. And during that process, we can discuss some of the do's and don'ts. Because there are times when our children will do some wrong things because they have no idea what they are supposed to be doing. Some of them have no idea. There are some stages where our children are, as they grow up, they don't know which is the left and which is the right. So if we have not taught them, then how do we expect them to know what to do? I think we need to start right from the bottom. Take time to pray and take time to discuss with the children so that they will know what they are expected and the consequences for not following the instructions. That can help us as we discipline the children in our homes.
Okay, discipline. A little bit of difference here. I was actually raised, we're 10 in number, and we have lost 3 now. So the 2 went left first, so we had 8 of us, and I'm the 5th. I actually am one person who would rather look at what has happened to you and not let it happen to me. I'm very careful. My parents never used a stick on any of us. Never. Mom and dad would not, and they never did. Except once when my father was very angry with me and he said, sit down here and today you're going to feel the spank. And he didn't really beat me, he just sat me there. But because I knew I had offended him so bad, I was crying all through the night. But my elder brother was very authoritative. He would not take that never spank a child for an excuse. No way. He put us on the line. You have to really be fixed. That's my brother. It doesn't matter what time, he will fix you. Because he felt that we were all his responsibility. Because he said, Dad told me at 9, when he was 9 years old, that you are all my responsibilities. So whatever I decide happens. And Dad was always away. He's a custom officer, so he worked every part of the country and never available. Mom was business inclined and she was always out. So Big Brother took that responsibility and was parenting us. So that's where I got mine, not from my parents, but from my big brother. And because I was that one that would not want to offend anybody, because I don't want that spanking, I don't want the beating, I don't even want you to speak too loud to me because it's embarrassing. So whatever you want me to do, please list it. What is it? Where, how far, how high? Do I jump? Yes, let's get it done. I want to avoid that. So my elder sisters and my elder brothers saw a little bit of my brother, and I would watch. And I and the younger ones, we would try to isolate ourselves and say, don't you ever let this happen to you. And that's what we learned from what happened to our older ones. But a little bit of it got to us when the other ones felt like they are not beating you because we are the ones championing the thing. So they would come to transfer the aggression on us. So we got a little bit of that. But then, growing up, raising our own children, grandmas are very protective. And the children, we raised them in that community. So grandma was with them, and they were just little children. So we had a lot of support. What do you want them to do? The things they were supposed to do were done for them. Okay, we had support. Even when I had to move to Lagos, where I lived with them alone, I had 3 helpers. I don't want to say they are mates. They were not. They were helping me. Victor was away, and I was alone with them. So I had a chef, I had a cleaner, I had a playmate for the children. So the children were always engaged. There is no room to say, okay, I want to really discipline them like this. No. So they grew up with people and they learned from the system. So the discipline, but it's really frustrating sometimes when after I now had to stay with them, especially in the UK, where they now see that there is a lot of things they wouldn't do back home. Those morals, you know how grandparents would try to talk to children and ensure that don't do this, don't do that. And grandma would always do that. So now it was just mom alone getting frustrated, tired, and with night shift and all those, it became a little heavy. And we were now contemplating what is the best way to discipline these children, especially because in the environment where they are, they see a lot of things that are different from what they used to see. So the environment was also raising them for us back home, where we lived was very controlled and good for them to grow. But here they have to grow amongst children that are different, that are free to say what they want to say, do what they want to do. How do we discipline them? We now began to think of what works. Like my brother said, tell the children to go to their room. That's where they actually were. Where are you telling them to go? That's where they want to be. You want them to come out of the room. So you go for the device that keeps them in the room. Bring out that phone. Bring out your iPad. Give it to me. Go and do your chores. So we try to use that soft measure of taking, withholding whatever was distracting them, and they are always on my head. Mom, no. And I'm like, if you just give it to me, in 5 minutes, you're done, you come back for it, and time to put it away, 10 o'clock. Make sure it's charging by my bedside. You have to go to bed. So things, it worked. It still works till tomorrow because they charge their devices by my bedside. I have to see them. Otherwise, they would not sleep. You go 3 a.m., where is he? 3 a.m., some of them are still with their devices. Okay, I am not a sleepy person, so sometimes I'm awake at that time. But my boy will come to me to say, Mom, you are also not sleeping, so how do you want me to stay on my bed? So I say, okay, I'm going to bed. So now they want you to live by example. Do it and we will follow you. So parents, that's one thing. As much as you want to tell them what to do, you want to do it as well. Yeah, and just to buttress this, one of the acts, the most approved, the most recent Scottish act here. So we have the Children Equal Protection from Assault Scotland Act 2019 that came into effect on November 7th, 2020. It actually just stipulates that parents are not expected to inflict any physical punishment to their children. No smacking, no spanking, no hitting. It is illegal. So we have to know that. Here in this country, you do not discipline the children. You will do it systematically by trying to at least create boundaries in your own home. Try to create boundaries in your home. Define things. Discuss with them. Lay it out as it ought to be. Timeout might not work in all cases, but it might just work if the child needs something desperately. You say, oh, okay, because you have to do this, get this done. It's not bribe to say, okay, if you want to go to the park, why not you pick up your toys and put them away first? And let's tidy up. You make them see the reason why they have to do it. Explain to them. It becomes a family culture. So, and sometimes, like we do, they make them lose some privileges. Like, I'm going to take your device. For me, I do that a lot. Yeah, I'll take your phone away. I'll take your iPad away. I'll put it away. Just take them. And Sundays, they know that early morning Sunday, I come to the rooms, I take all the phones so that you can tidy up your space, clean up, hoover, and get ready for Monday rush. Okay? So be more positive. When the children do something something nice, please amplify that. Speak about what they have done right, so they know that, okay, even when I do it right, I am recognized, I'm encouraged to do that. And try to be more logical with them. Discuss matters with them. Even when they are 5 years old, they still know what they want. You have taught them to choose. We prepare their test board, we prepare their choices, we teach them to choose the things that are right from the time we gave birth to them. We have taught them what to choose. And they are looking up to us providing those things. So when you create those boundaries, they fall into that and they just continue. And constant communication if you have to, please. As you communicate with the children, they will know you and you know them. You are exchanging personalities. They understand you and you also would understand them. So please lead by example. Very important.
Okay, words of wisdom from our panelists there. If I can summarize what they've just said, what I got is put boundaries. Teach them the do's and the don'ts before they do the don'ts. I hope that makes sense. And then when you need to discipline them, make sure you have tools in your arsenal. Beating is not one of them, but have tools that work for you. And as you do all of this, your aim is to get them to think of why the role is actually there and how it is beneficial for them. And that's where you want them to be thinking. That's the level you want them to be thinking at. So let's just look at some of the answers that we got. What types of discipline works best? Okay, we're going to have to move a bit fast. Okay, there are some worrying responses. I don't know if these are young people who are writing this. Wooden spoon, hanger, leather. Whew, tough ones, eh? We don't want those ones because those are physical. Yeah. But someone even wrote leather premium belt. Slipper. Okay. Belts. We don't want those ones. So, yeah. Okay. But anyway, let's move on and power code. No. Okay. I think context matters. I think when we grew up, it was a different context. Some of these methods worked, but I think now we know better and we need to move on with the times and deal with our children in the proper manner.
Maybe before you continue, yes. I think we need to start from the basics. Mm-hmm. The basics is what at times we miss. We know that even in the Bible, when people didn't behave properly, they were disciplined. God disciplined them. And we need our children to understand that. And they can only understand it if we take time to pray with them. Sit down with them and pray with them and make sure that they are focused on doing things right. Because in most cases, honestly, they do it innocently. Because they've seen somebody else somewhere getting away with murder, getting away with the problems. But if we sit down and pray with our children, make it a habit that before they go to sleep, they pray. When they wake up, they pray. And I know the Lord will help us. The Lord will be with us. I remember I did do some babysitting sometime this week. And sorry to keep you waiting, but I thought we could share this. I did babysitting. These are children who are not Seventh-day Adventists. And at 9:20, I told the girls, now girls, it's time for you to get ready to sleep. Your parents haven't come and you are still with me here. So I need to make you sleep. I'll organize a place for you to sleep. And do you know what the girls said? They said, before we sleep, before we switch off the tele, can we watch a video on David? Was it David? I can't remember. We want to watch a video on David, and after that, then we can pray. Pray, then we can sleep. And sure enough, they got the video they wanted, watched it, and they offered to pray themselves. I wanted to pray for them, but they said no. They called me Gogo, Nani. Yeah, don't worry, we are going to pray. And they did pray for themselves before they went to sleep. I could see that these children have they have a program, a schedule that they follow in their home, and they wanted to continue doing it. And so, my brothers and sisters, let's make sure that whatever plans we have, whatever methods we are going to use, let's start off by organizing our children to know that there is time for prayer, there is time for this, and there is time for them to go to sleep. If we follow that, we might get it right. We might not get it perfect, but we might get it right.
Amen. So God-centered discipline. Right. Let's read some things from the Bible. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be wary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. So that's exactly what Auntie Bessie was saying that God, even in the Bible, he disciplined people because he loved them. So we should not withhold discipline for our children because we also love them. And then something from the manuscripts, it says, parents, in dealing with your children, reveal God's justice and God's mercy. Repress every harsh word. Remember that fretting and scolding are as injurious to your children as profanity. Be firm, but let no loud, angry words escape your lips. Keep self under control of God's holy word. Remember that much management is worse than no management at all. So do not micromanage. Remember that too much management is worse than no management at all. Rule your children with tenderness and compassion, remembering that they are angels. Do always behold the face of the Father which is in heaven. If you desire the angels to do for your children the work given them by God, cooperate with them by doing your part. Work with loving tenderness, for this is the way Christ works. Okay. All right.
Sorry, we are really running late. So I'm going to ask the panelists now, whatever question you're answering, you have to take a minute to say anything because, we are late. So I'm going to have the mentee running. There are a couple of mentees here. Some are yes, no questions. Some are specific to parents. Some are for the young people. And what we're looking at right now is parents and the role that they actually play. Parents, how easy is it to be a friend? Is it easy to be a friend to your children? So please, if you can do that, mentee, while our panelists, 1 minute each about relationships between parents and children.
Maybe because I'm on this side of the bench, I will start. What I love the dynamics in my home. We're blessed with a daughter and a son. And one thing I've realized, and I let it be, is that there is a lot of chit-chat between my wife and our daughter. And I love it. And I'm not jealous. Because I appreciate the values that my wife holds there, and I know that she will not pass something different to our daughter. So, based on our personalities, we should be open to our children, in that they can open up themselves about life. But the degree of that friendliness may be different from mother to father. But then, Anioluwa should be free enough to tell me anything.
Okay, amen. Thank you. Pastor.
There's that verse in the Bible that says parents do not upset your children. Is that the word? Or don't provoke your children. So the way that I see it, when the child is young, you have responsibility. You've got a higher responsibility for their safety and their decisions and stuff. And you can be a little bit more authoritarian. That's the word I like to use. But as the child gets older and older, there's like a dance that happens where you have to allow the child to develop their own personality, their own idea, and friendship becomes more and more important as time goes on. So there's it's a continuum, or it's not just one answer. But the goal is you don't want your children to resent you so much by the end, when they turn 18, that they just want to run away from you. In a way, you do need to have that relationship, but it's getting that balance between control and giving freedom for where a person can be.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, 1 second before we move to Aunt Bessie. Young people, your question is it easy to confide in your parents? Yes or no? We will discuss these afterwards. Aunt Bessie?
Yes, I do. I do agree with what the other people have said. And maybe I could just add that the levels will differ. The way you you interact with your children, it will differ according to the age and also according to the situation. But it's important that you develop that relationship that keeps your children in your home and not outside the home. Let them not feel better when they are talking to Auntie Janice and feel reserved when they're talking to you. So it's important that you keep a good relationship. I'll give you a good example. As I grew up, when I had a boyfriend, the boyfriend came home. Long back, you can imagine when that was, about 1970.
Wow.
My mom was prepared to let the boyfriend come home, and I introduced him, and we had a meal with him. I was still quite young by then, but it developed a relationship. We developed a relationship that was quite good, and well, I won't go into details, but what I'm trying to say is you become better in interacting with your parents if you let them know some of those things earlier on in life, because you don't want to hide it until you come up with a soul and tummy. It's best to start off at an early age when it's necessary to interact with your parents quite well.
Thank you, Aunt Bessie. Sissy Fioma?
Yeah, a relationship with children. I think that's a fault for me, like, at all. Should I say, I will always emphasize the support I had raising my children. So if you're looking at it, you just say, oh, this woman is a strong woman. I had community to support me. So I now had to do the relationship bit, okay? I had to ensure that there is an established relationship with the children from child, and like Pastor stated it, from the childhood, there is a level of authority you need to exercise on the child to know that, okay, there are boundaries. This is how far we can go. We can't get here, is too far. Let's stop here. So you don't want your relationship to be so sweet that you blur those boundaries. You want to maintain them because you have the responsibility and that obligation to raise these children for God. They are, underlying that, your stewards. Our children are our responsibilities. So first of all, as you want to establish that relationship, you want to be sure that it's not something that can be blurred. You don't want to laugh over things that you need to exert your authority on. And as they grow older and you still think that, okay, yeah, this is the authority is not weakened, is strengthened, but there are times when you need to be friends. Discussions should be, you have a tradition at home where you know that children should talk to you. their first point of call should be you. They should confide in you. Like my daughter will come back to say, Mom, can I tell you something? And I'm saying, like, okay, yeah, I'm listening. She's like, is it time to really talk about things like this? And I'm like, yeah, everything, there is time for everything, but I think this time is right as well. Because if you feel it, if you're in it, you're experiencing it, why not? Let's talk about it. So let's talk about it because they have to come to me first. And my children, the boys, the girls, they were so attached to me that everything, I tell you, Jesse would say, Ellis told his friend that, look, I tell my mom everything. And they were like, wanting to call him names. And he said, that's your problem, deal with it. But I will tell my mom everything. So my children are quite very close to me. Yeah. And I also encourage them, if there is somebody you can confide in church, that you can talk to, that you can listen to you, why not? Express yourself. But know that you and I come home first. Mom and dad has to know what you're doing.
Right. So communication is something that is very important. Young people, if you feel you cannot really talk to your parents, find a trusted person to talk to. But seeing the results that we're getting here in church, 2/3 of the parents feel it's easy to be friends with their children. And wow, some children feel they can confide in their parents. Some don't feel they can. At the end of the day, we are learning, and it's about changing that relationship. If you find your children are not able to confide in you, look for the necessary skills to get them to open up. Sorry, I'm going to have to rush through this. I'm going to skip that mentee. Okay? The verse that was read, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. And then we've got some quotations from Adventist Home. I'm not going to read through these, but they talk about how to win the love and confidence of the children, and about how this is our obligation because we don't want them to get influences from outside of the home. They need to trust us explicitly and be able to talk to us about any and everything that they are facing. We will now move on to our final thing, and again, very quick discussion.
Yeah, it will be a very quick one. Before we hand over to the panel, can we just go to our mentee so that can be running as the panel is discussing? So the question to our panel, to what extent should parents make decisions for their children? Let's keep it short and sweet. To what extent should parents make decisions for their children?
Yes.
And then, for the children, the young people, the children, you can be answering the question which is on the mentee.
Yes. To be very brief, for my wife and I, we believe that we will make basic decisions that they need for now. When they get to the age of choosing, or when they are able to make better decisions, when they have better capacity to make better decisions, they will choose where or what they want to do. But we will do the basic and introduce them to, but many of the decisions, life-changing decisions, is not up to them for now. We will make it on their, if it is life-changing decision or life-directing decisions, we will make for them for now. When they have the capacity to do so, they will do it. And we leave them to do it. But for now, no.
I think it's a good idea to, from the youngest age, teach our children to make decisions for themselves. But having said that, I agree with what Niyi says, because some decisions are just too, the children are not at the position where they can make that decision. And that includes things like social media, and it includes things like what television programs to watch and what kind of activities we allow them to attend. If we have a concern about safety and influence at a young age, we need to be able to make decisions that safeguard our children. It's better if we then explain to them why we make that decision, so that it's not just arbitrary, oh, you don't like me, therefore you don't allow me to do that. But I grew up in a house where my mother treated me, she was a real caring kind of mother, so she would take me to the shops and help me choose my clothes. I think if I had to do that again if I had a son, I would probably begin to empower the child to look after their budget and to go to the shops and choose their clothes, etc. Give them a little bit more freedom on that. But I would still stick with the decisions about the kind of moral things until the child is at an age where they can think these things through more carefully for themselves.
Go ahead.
I do agree with the other speakers, and we can just continue. I don't know that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the children will inform you when it's time for them to make their decisions. The basic one, like normally, how to protecting them, shielding them, instructing them, and then guiding them in the where they live. And you are also compelled, even by your own responsibility and your career, where you have to go and what you have to do. So you do not even have all of it, but you bring them into consideration when you're making your decisions. Okay, you consider them as you make the decision. And if they have some kind of concerns, you also consider those when you are making a decision so they somehow influence your decision as you grow. So it's not like they are outrightly out of your decision or out of making decision, because if you've taken them to a previous nursery before, you know how they can relate with people, and you're taking them to another one, maybe because of change of environment or change of accommodation, you are now compelled to factor in what they dealt with previously, how they discussed things with you. You bring those into your own consideration. So they are actually influencing your decision, but they are not outrightly making that pronounced decision. So at a tender age, they are making decisions as well. So as they get older, they will tell you, maybe not verbally, but by action. It got to a time when growing up, I like to doll my girls with some beads and everything and dress them up in twin clothes, everything. And it got to the point where they would even cry to wear the clothes. When you want to, they say, Mom, I don't want to wear this. Okay, so you take them to the shop and you want to pick for them what you want, but they are saying, I want this one. So you know that this is the signal. It's time to let them choose for themselves. But those life-changing ones, discuss with them because they are at that age.
Okay, thank you. So it's age dependent. Well, very close one. Our young people don't trust parents with their decisions. Okay, they do, but yeah, it's a close one, 7-5, yeah. But most do. So parents, we've got work to do there to get our children to trust us. As you heard from the panel, it's very age dependent. If we read the next verse on the slide, it says, this is for the parents as well as for the children. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. That's from Proverbs. And then he says, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in abundance of counselors, there is safety. Mm-hmm. So that applies to both parents and the children. We're going to skip because of time. Those are some of the quotations that you can read up on, and from child guidance as well. We'll skip that one. And then, let me hand over to Claviso.
Okay, our apologies. Honestly, the upcoming slide was supposed to be about young people and whether they feel heard and that sort of thing. But I feel like we need a day or an afternoon to go into some of these issues because now we need to end our session. So I'm just going to end the session with a quotation from the Upward Look. It says, the family whose members love God and one another, who do not get provoked, who are long-suffering, forbearing, kind, is a symbol of the family above. The members realize that they are a part of the great firm of heaven. They are taught by the laws of mutual dependence to rely upon the great head of the church. So we need to rely on each other. Right? So parents, young people, we are all working together to create families that are ready for heaven. And we hope that, with the discussions that we've had, we can have further discussions at home about various things, about discipline, about our relationships, about the decisions that we are making in life. When we go out, please note there are some gift bags that have been prepared for each family. So please do make sure you see me or Shepherd or Emma outside. We'll hand something over to each family, please. And thank you, Emma. She did a lot of work on what you're going to be getting. So I will thank you to our panel. We got some great words of wisdom, and we are grateful for the insights that you shared. And thank you, everyone. We're going to share the presentations for this week and last week so that you can see the results and the various quotations. I'm now going to ask the church to stand.